I'm Beth, your resident music nerd, back with a deconstruction of Hello Dolly. For this week's deconstruction, we're going to go through the first minute and 20 seconds of Put On Your Sunday Clothes, specifically to highlight Christian Dante White's performance as Cornelius, because I love him so much. He's such a great performer. So let's get into it. To be clear, this is the 2017 revival of Hello Dolly, and Christian Dante White was in the ensemble and was the understudy for Cornelius, and I think his performance is fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the first minute and 20 seconds of Put On Your Sunday Clothes and just compare a couple of performances that we did, because we're lucky enough to have two different recordings. So let's listen to some stuff. Let's go.
We're going to New York.
In their shop,
Out there, there's a world outside of Yonkers. Way out there beyond this hill town, Barnaby. There's a sweet town, Barnaby.
Alright, so in the first 20 seconds, I have some things to say. So, we have these beautiful, pure vowels, these E's. You could also call it like a closed E, because it's very spread and wide, versus E, or like a very open E, very choral. And I admit, I'm kind of riffing off of, well, I'm kind of totally stealing, but crediting Seth Rudetsky's deconstruction of this very same song, which I will link in my description, but I want to incorporate it into this video for some educational purposes. So a pure or sort of closed E is very spread, very wide E, whereas an open vowel, aw, is very open, very round, very tall. And you would hear open vowels especially in choirs, and the thing is, I actually grew up preferring the sound of open vowels because I was sort of conditioned to, because when you're in a choir, you have to be very tall, and you have to match your vowels to everyone else's around you. But then, especially after listening to a lot of Broadway and Seth Rudetsky, I realized that it's more satisfying to hear sort of purer, closed vowels that are forward and bright, rather than very tall and open and like just not as pure and exact. So I think it's great that Christian Dante White has a E. He sings Barnaby rather than Barnaby, and it's not like just thrown out there and just like bleh. It's B and very forward and focused and bright, and it sounds great. I also love his vibrato so much. His vibrato is just fantastic. One thing though, in this particular recording, he does do a couple breaths where he's like in between some of the phrases, and I might have just been excitement, how, catching your breath, sometimes it's an acting choice, sometimes, but once I hear it, I can't unhear it, and I'm probably gonna, ruin some of y'all's listening experiences out there, because Ramin Karimloo also did this at the 25th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera, and I think it was kind of because of the prosthetic that he was wearing, but, almost every phrase, he just, that sound, and I could not unhear it. The actual singing is great, but I wasn't a fan of the breaths. But otherwise, Christian Dante White is great, and he does not do that breath thingy in the next recording, so, different, every night's different, the excitement level, the breath level of every night is different. This vibrato's amazing. Speaking of the other recording, let's listen to that one now. Shop, shop, shop. Okay, so you heard a difference there, right? In the previous recording, he stayed on Barnaby, but in this one, he portamentos, or does a portamento, or a slide up to the next phrase, and that's beautiful, and I gotta say, I think his portamento rivals that of Gavin Creel's. Seth Rudetsky, goes wild over Gavin Creel's portamento, which makes sense, because he was listening to that particular performance, but, just saying, Christian Dante White's portamento is beautiful. And we're going to listen to it again, right now. If I can find the timestamp. Here we go. Oh, it's beautiful, so beautiful. Okay, now going back to the previous one, let's listen to that, let's keep on going. Blech. Beautiful stuff, beautiful vibrato. So what I want to point out is the phrase full of shine and full of sparkle. In this particular version, he sings it straight as written, full of shine and full of sparkles, and I want you to keep that in mind for the next recording. Another thing you should keep in mind for the next recording is that he goes, listen, Barnaby. I can't sing, okay, deal with it. Which is actually not what's written. What's interesting, a lot of performers tend to do that, but it's actually not what's written. The actual one is, listen, Barnaby, instead of, listen, Barnaby. It's actually, the actual note is supposed to be higher, so he opted for the lower one this time, but let's listen for some changes in the next recording. So in this next recording, he does go for what's actually written, and what's really cool is that he goes like, listen, Barnaby. He like holds on to the L, which I love, and then, remember that full of shine and full of sparkles line that I told you to remember about? Well, here, he holds on to the word on, of, so he goes, full of shine something and full of sparkles, and I love that. It's so cool that he holds on to it for a little longer. Let's listen to that again. Oop, I went too far. There we go. Oh, it's so good. I love that so much. Moving on, I want to point out another instance of his placement on the word there. So before we talked about how he sort of sings the part of it, here, upcoming, he goes, there's lots of world out there. So he sort of goes, he like flips it up in the top and places it very forward rather than going like world out there, versus It's cool. It sounds great. Also, let's just listen to how free his voice is. Just incredible vibrato. He makes this song, which is a ridiculously difficult song, sound so easy to sing. And I just wish, sometimes I try singing along and I'm like, oh yeah, no, let's not. So, especially on the word stars, let's listen to just how he just pops out that high note so beautifully. Let's listen to it now.
Your Sunday clothes, there's lots of worlds out there. Get up the brilliant teen and dime cigars.
Great low note.
We're gonna find adventure in the evening air. Girls in white in a perfume night where the lights are bright as the stars.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. One thing I forgot to mention is, what is the phrase? He sings "We're gonna find adventure in the evening air" with a little bit of a rhythm change. So the actual phrase is, "We're gonna find adventure in the evening air." Yes, I went down the octave. This is an impossible song for Wim to sing, and I can't sing anyway. So, but instead he goes, "We're gonna find adventure in the evening air." It's great. Let's listen to that again.
Get up the brilliant teen and dime cigars. We're gonna find adventure in the evening air.
It's great, although he does do a beforehand, but not in the next recording, which we're going to listen to now.
Sunday clothes, there's lots of world out there. Get up the brilliant teen and dime cigars. We're gonna find adventure in the evening air. Girls in white in a perfume night where the lights are bright as the stars.
Stars, it's beautiful, it's so good. Also, did you notice he goes like, perfumed night? He just punches that P, that plosive. It's because it's so fun to sing it that way. You can tell he's having so much fun with it. To finish up Christian Dante White's solo as Cornelius, we're going to listen to how his placement of cars is the same as stars, and it just pops and sparkles so beautifully. I love it. And we're also going to notice a difference between the transition of the first performance into Dolly's solo and the transition from the second performance into Dolly's solo as well. It's a little bit of a different thing going on. So let's listen to those things.
Sunday clothes, we're gonna ride through town. One of those super-strong open cars. We'll see the shows at El Monaco's, and we'll close
So, for the final note there, they stayed on the same note. Can't tell me kissed a girl. But in the second performance, it's a little different. Let's listen to it.
Sunday clothes, we're gonna ride through town. There's one of those with horse on open cars. We'll see the show at Delmonico's, going from the town in our world. And we won't come home until we kissed a girl. Put on your Sunday clothes.
So it's interesting that to sort of help out the transition, the modulation or key change, sometime, maybe during the previews, at some point, it was decided that Cornelius and Barnaby would sing the half step up to help that modulation. So there you have it, a comparison of the growth and slight changes of Christian Dante's performances over a couple different recordings. He has an incredible voice, beautiful vibrato, you heard it yourself, so I recommend you check out the rest of his work. Until next week!